Well, first, Tyler, thanks for organizing this for our shareholders. You know, pretty big announcements this week for us, and really for those that are kind of first looking at Tocvan. I mean, we are a gold silver explorer developer in Sonora, Mexico, which is a jurisdiction that's built around mining. Extremely mine friendly, great infrastructure. You can access both our properties, but quick drive from the city, uh, and it has great people to advance these projects. And I think that's what really sets us apart is that we've got an amazing team that has been able to execute on our drill programs, on the bulk sample that we just completed. All that success is coming from them. And what we've done over the last 4 years is build something quite significant at Pilar in terms of a future resource there. And that drill success has kind of led us towards the bulk sample, which has shown that we can recover those metals. And now with this acquisition, it's looking at the scale, the big scale that we can really create, and that's the exciting part for us. And so with Pilar, it's about taking that to production, and we've got a path to do that. Um, and along that way, it's about discovering new things and adding that and building out as big of a resource as we possibly can.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe touch on a few of the key highlights as to why we are a good investment in the gold space right now?
Yeah, I think we're building towards a maiden resource that we feel is going to be significant. It's an oxide resource that will be right at surface, so it extremely amenable to open pit development. This is a jurisdiction where you can develop a project like that, make it a mine for very low cost. Current PAs are pricing things around $20 million, which is extremely low to build a mine. And there's companies around us that are doing just that. And so that gives us a lot of confidence that we're in the right jurisdiction to move this forward. Um, and and we have a very clear path on how to get there. And this announcement over the last couple days, that acquisition is a huge piece to that. And now that that's complete, we get to have fun and see how big we can really make this.
Yeah, you bet. So I guess that's a good branch into some of the things that we've announced this week. So I'll let you run with it here and tell everybody why we're so excited about the news that has been announced this week.
Yeah, I think we have to go back to the start with Pilar, and we always wanted to do this. We always wanted to add more to the land package. Um, it's all about timing though, and that wasn't available to us early on. More recently, we were able to reopen those discussions and get a deal done. And just on the land acquisition itself, the that area having access to it, giving us more room for development, more room for infrastructure, for a mine development, uh, that's key. The fact that it's prospective is something that totally opens it up and makes it that much more exciting. And I'm just gonna roll through the slides because I don't want to dwell on that. I really want to focus on this expansion area, and that's you know it's a huge area. It's 22 square kilometers. It's extremely prospective in that it has never been explored for gold and silver. The local artisanal miners are operating here and they're pulling gold, so it's coming from somewhere. Uh, and we've just proven with the first batch of sampling, which is really, you know, uh, without even trying, essentially, finding something of significance and proving that, hey, these alteration halos that we see further to the north are real and they are tied to mineralization. And now we can go find more. And so that's really the significance there. The fact that we've been able to do that so quickly really showcases what the potential is here because the samples collected really done part of the due diligence for the acquisition
Yeah.
here. It was our geologist going out to spend a few days to just get an understanding of the area. We had very little to no information about this project. There are no really known areas where you can go and sample and know you're going to get something, right? So our geologists are going out during the rainy season where access is a little bit more difficult. The grass is hip high, all the leaves are grown in on the scrub brush. You can't see a lot. And the fact that they've just gone out and the first sample in the biggest alteration zone yields the highest result. And um, that's telling us something significant. That's telling us there's a real system there. And now we need to go find out how big it is.
So when you look at something of this scale and of this size, you went out there and you had a limited amount of time due to the terms set in the letter of intent there. Typically how many samples would someone go out and grab on something of this scale?
I mean, you're looking at 22 square kilometers. So, I mean, a lot of projects, I mean, you'll collect hundreds of samples before you kind of get onto something significant. And, typically a project this size, I mean, you sample thousands of samples. But I mean, again, that is the significance of these results, is that this wasn't us going, right, let's go here and sample some high grade.
Yeah.
It's going, right, what's going on here? And really our expectation was that we'd get some samples back that would have the pathfinder elements that would guide us for the next phase to find targets. We did not expect to receive results that were so encouraging this quickly. And, looking at Pilar itself down in the bottom right corner, you know, there's a sizable footprint there that we've been building off of. With what we had previously, we felt that there was still a lot of room to expand on that. But immediately around it, what we're finding is that there's continued mineralization. Just to the north of the property, we're finding on multiple trends uh, that there is a continuation of that mineralization. So we know we can expand Pilar even further. Now, further to the north of that is where we see those big placer workings. So these are, a group of coordinated miners that are going after surface material in these dry creek beds, and they're recovering a significant amount of gold. And we've seen the gold that they're producing. They don't do this unless they're making money. And we know from the old geological maps that there is a gold silver showing adjacent to that. But where they've chased it up and germinated is when you get higher up into that creek bed. And we have seen evidence of old workings in that area as well. So we haven't sampled those yet, but we have a high degree of confidence that there's something there that's shedding gold. Now, those placer miners have moved further east and they're working up this drainage now, and we have control of that as well. So we feel that there's potential to start to chase up and find the source for those active miners right now. And the other thing that's interesting is that, further to the north, we have these altered volcanics, and these are the same rocks that are hosting mineralization at Pilar. Um, and what we're seeing is great indications. I know, 0.2 grams per ton gold isn't exciting, but when you're exploring, that's extremely exciting because when you're close to something at Pilar, you're seeing values like that. And you can be a stone's throw away from something significant when you're seeing values like that. So this is very encouraging. Both of these hills are, over a kilometer long. Like you could fit a Pilar on each of those. And, I think this is very promising that we're onto something. Now, obviously, the most exciting thing we've seen so far is further to the north. We have the biggest alteration package that we see. This is hydrothermal alteration, so it is associated with mineralizing events. And the first sample we have taken across that entire area has yielded over 5 grams gold and 100 grams silver. That is significant. And the fact that that coincides with alteration. So this is looking at a satellite interpretation of aster data, which is, you know, just to keep it high level, it's looking at wavelengths from that satellite imagery to determine different mineralogy that's typically tied with a mineralized system. And we're seeing the right things. We're seeing a collection of those minerals that coincide with where that sample is. And now that area is, 3 kilometers long. It's 1.5 kilometers wide, and it's never been sampled. And that's the significance here is that you look at those hills, there's something going on. Before it was just, our model, our theory that there was something. This is proving it instantly. And that's the real significance. And the fact that it's not a narrow vein that they've sampled, this is altered, silicified, andesite rock, the same host rock you see at Pilar, and it's mineralized. That's what you want. That's what you want, a sizable target to go after, and that's what we're seeing already. So this is very significant for us and a huge step forward.
I think one of the most important things to note about this, this was done with 20 samples. It was a limited amount of time where the geologists went out there and they weren't looking for, those low hanging samples where you could go up to an exposed underground shaft and sample around there and get some high grade stuff. You have to look at this a little bit differently. In terms of, this was a recon to go out there and see if this is a massive acquisition. We didn't already have this property where, you want to go and excite the market and pull some high grade samples. You're sampling to see how prospective this land is, to grow it into something district scale, to provide management with confidence that this is what's there. And I think that's the most important thing to note. And, 20 samples to come back with some significant results like that is very exciting. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing to really drive home is that, our geologists are going out blind, they have very limited information. This has never been sampled, so it's not like there's something that leads you to a certain area, and it's big, so it's hard to focus on everything. You got to just kind of get out there. Really, they got lucky in that they went down this road. They decided to go out for a walk. They saw something that looked a little different in terms of the alteration. They sampled it, and there it is. So, I mean, again, that's so encouraging to see that so quickly, so early on, because we could have spent months, going through that process. Um, and now we've got this big area to really start to focus on and hone in and get these ready for drilling. That's the next step is we want to aggressively target here for drilling because we feel that if we can step out significantly from Pilar, we know we can make it big. It's the mineralization's right there, right adjacent to the old boundary. We can make it bigger. There's excellent indications from the placer and some of the sampling that we've done already that there's other stuff close to Pilar. But what we really want to do is showcase that we can step out aggressively, find new Pilars, and just start to build that out because our focus over the next couple of years is going to be building out a sizable resource. And the more targets we have to go after are just going to add to that. And we feel like this is a significant piece.
yeah. So if you go back to that aster data just quickly there, Brody, I want to just look at where you sampled that 5.6 grams per ton and kind of compare it with, what you're seeing at Pilar there. You're looking at the size of Pilar in the bottom right corner, and you're looking where you've pulled that sample. That data is signaling that there's mineralization there from where you pulled the sample, and that extends 3.3 kilometers across the property. that's significant, and it really makes myself wonder, you know, what happens if you went and took 100 samples there?
Yeah.
What would you guys be coming back with? And you look at, you know, the data with the Aster data with Pilar right now. There's a very significant piece to the puzzle happening up there on that side of the property.
Sure. And I mean, when you visit Pilar, everyone that goes there, you're standing, you know, right on the mineralized system at our main zone. You look to the north. Everyone asks, "What's going on in those hills further north?" Because
Yeah.
it's so apparent. You don't need to be a geologist to look at them and go, "Right, like there's something going on there." And you know, for the last 3 years, we've had to say, "Yeah, we're working on it," kind of thing. Um, and now we get to go and look at those and assess them fully. Um, and again, to this quickly to be able to showcase that there's something there. There's actually gold and silver tied to that. That's substantial. And again, yeah, you're right. Look at Pilar. It doesn't really show up on that aster imagery, and there's a couple of reasons for that. It's, you know, that aster imagery, it needs to have, you know, full exposure of rock to work appropriately. So that's one aspect. The other is that, you know, we don't really see, we do see a lot of oxidation. There is alteration tied to the system at Pilar, but it's not as apparent as you see in these northern blocks. And the fact that we now know that these are mineralized, it's telling us that there's as a substantial system, a hydrothermal system that's driving these types of deposits um, in these areas. And now we need to go evaluate them fully because they're real, they're tangible, and let's go find more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember it was not too long ago that you had some majors coming out and touring the property there. What do you think this land expansion means to some of those onlookers who have, you know, they've historically known about Pilar?
You know, I think you got to step back on the history here, where you know Pilar was discovered in the mid '90s by the Lundin Group. You know, they drilled in '96 21 meters of 38 grams gold. Um, that's a huge hit, and they hit some other, you know, 10 meters, 10 grams kind of thing. But it's mid '90s where the price of gold is, you know, $300 an ounce. You need a lot of high grade to make it work, and they ended up walking away. But because of those initial hits, Pilar got put on the map. You know, geologists that work in this region knew about it, and because of that history, you know, a lot of the geologists that work for, you know, major producers in the region now know of Pilar, have been there at some point. You know, we've been fortunate to tour a couple of groups, you know, I think the takeaway was always, hey, there's something significant here at Pilar, fantastic, uh, but how big can we make it? You know, how they want to see scale, right? So, you know, how big can we make it? Is there more out there? And this now allows us to take that next step. Um, and already we're seeing that, yeah, there is more out there. Definitely. I mean, the placer stuff, very interesting. I think it's really going to guide us into something that's very close to Pilar that we can tag into.
Yeah.
But these bigger alteration cells that are mineralized are real, and you know we can now look at that as well. So I think this, you know, obviously it's a big boost for the overall project. In my mind, you know, this is probably, you know, the most significant thing we've done to date in terms of making sure that this project has a strong future. And you know, we'll see what comes from future conversations here. But you know, we're already seeing such great indications that, you know, I'm not in a huge rush to try to work out a deal with another operator in the region, because hey, we want to find out what we have.
Yeah.
And you know, the markets have been tough, and you know, everyone's undervalued. We're, you know, we feel undervalued, and um, we want to make sure we get the best value for our shareholders. So, for us, the next steps is going to be aggressive here and sample and start drilling.
Yeah, for sure. So, maybe you can go over how this data sets you up leading into, you know, drill planning and an upcoming program.
For sure. So, obviously with this acquisition, we wanted to move these targets forward as quick as we can. This is a big boost for us having, strong indications already. And, and our focus, there's a lot to do at Pilar. I mean, there's a lot of infill we want to do, a lot of expansion drilling we want to do. We're targeting to put out a main resource later in 2024. That's going to build towards a PEA. While we're doing that, we're already starting the work, environmental, hydrological, working with the community to iron out our mine development permit and get that application in. But once that process is started and is in queue, we've got time to drill. So we want to be very aggressive with drilling. I want to drill at a minimum 22,000 meters of core and RC across these properties over the next 2 years. That's going to be our focus point. And again, that's building out as big of a resource as we possibly can, so that when we get that permit back to develop Pilar, uh, we know we've got something sizable. We know we've got something that we can recover the metals from,
Yeah.
and we can make that construction decision quick. So this just really helps us propel even faster towards targeting on these areas.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a couple more slides that you wanted to run through there?
Yeah, I think while we're here, it's important to remember Picacho because we tend to talk a lot about Pilar. We did drill Picacho the end of 2022. We got those results early this year, and had a discovery there. We drilled 10 holes. All 10 holes hit mineralization. We didn't see the grades we wanted in all 10 holes, but that's okay. These types of systems, like San Francisco, the 3 million ounce gold deposit, and on and off operating mine that's next to us, uh, is very similar. And you need drill density to define these types of systems. We're just starting here, but the fact that we had that success so early, extremely encouraging. And so this is something that we've got in our back pocket. We'll keep going back to Picacho when we have time and keep moving that forward. But it's a big area. This is bigger than Pilar with the new acquisition still, and it's very prospective. So we just want to make sure everyone knows that we haven't forgotten about Picacho, but
Yeah.
it's definitely in our minds. And then, other than that, just highlighting our next steps. We've completed the land acquisition. That's huge for us. We're moving towards aggressive drill targeting. That's our focus now. And at the same time, we'll be doing the work for uh, mine development permitting, and that's going to be a big focus point for us there. And again, then resource definition drilling, going to be very aggressive on that front, and that's all going to lead us to construction decision. I mean, it's the path is getting more and more clear for us. It's build out a resource, get the permit, build, and we can see it now. We're getting closer and closer. And again, this acquisition was a huge part of that. And now we can take a big step forward.
Yeah, so speaking on the mine develop permitting, in Mexico, significantly faster than a lot of jurisdictions around the world, and speaking about Canada and the United States, where you're looking at 5 to 10 years for mine development permitting. I think you were saying before COVID, you could submit a mine development permit and have that back within 12 months. Is that still around the same, or has that been extended a bit after COVID?
Yeah, pre-COVID, you could actually permit a mine in 6 to 9 months, which
Wow.
is incredibly fast, right? And now we're seeing kind of 12 to 18 months. Really, post COVID, it's just like everywhere. There was personnel that didn't come back to work afterwards, and so a lot of those regulatory bodies, they're just trying to keep up, and so that slowed things down. But I mean, 18 months for a permit for a mine, that's still incredibly fast. And that's a key thing that really makes Sonora so attractive, is that you can do that, and you can do it at such low cost. There's companies around us that have built their mines, that are scaling up, but initially built them for $10 million. I mean, that's so incredibly low to get online and start producing. Um, and again, that makes it so attractive to get in there. And so, we're going through that process. It's in effect, it's an environmental impact assessment. So, there's some baseline work that we need to provide as we go into that. Um, but we know what that path looks like. We've got the people to get it done. So we'll be going down that. And then you're right. You look at that compared to other jurisdictions. Um, even here at home in Canada, it takes time to get stuff permitted, and again, that's the benefit that we have here. We just permitted, recently, earlier this year, Pilar for 83 drill pads, 10 trenches. It took 21 days. That's,
Well,
I mean, where else can you do that? There's very
yeah.
few places.
So maybe this is a good branch into. I know I've been getting a lot of questions on our stance on operating in Mexico. Do you maybe want to talk about where you sit with that and your thought process?
I'm just going to go to the map that shows Sonora here, but you know, there's been a lot of rhetoric in the media more recently because there's an election here coming up in Mexico.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of that is kind of had a negative sentiment towards mining in Mexico, but I think you have to look at who's operating here. You've got Fresnillo, the biggest silver producer in the world, biggest gold producer in Mexico. You've got a Cisco development. They've got their San Antonio project just 25 kilometers away from Pilar. You got Agnico Eagle. These are all quality companies that are confident and comfortable in being here. Um, and that's essential. You need to be in a jurisdiction like that. I we see that as the opportunity, is that where other people are shying away from Mexico, even though it does have a very quick permitting timeline, although it is pro mining. That's the opportunity for us to take advantage of. And so our stance is that this is the place to build mines. Um, Again, it comes back to the people because of the long history of mining here. You have quality people that know how to build mines, and that's a big part of our team and our success. And that's something we've wanted to focus on. Our whole entire team, on the technical side, are all down in Hermosillo. That's where they live. That's their home. That's their backyard, and they know it. They understand it better than anyone, and that's what's going to get us, all the way in terms of development here.
Yeah. And so just to touch on, some of those producers that are in Sonora are massive, massive companies, and you're seeing their grades slowly start to diminish as they're, looking for new projects to increase their grade, increase their profitability. So the bulk sample that Tocvan just completed, the average grade, the head grade of the bulk sample was 1.9 grams per ton. You're seeing a lot of these operations that are operating at 0.5, 0.6 grams per ton. Would you say that makes Pilar a great candidate for what people would be looking for as like an addition to what they're doing?
For sure. I think the head grade that we're seeing out of the bulk sample was extremely encouraging in that because you have that high grade mineralization at Pilar tied to the low grade, it is difficult to determine, what that grade would be without taking a bulk sample. And it's important to know the bulk sample was taken from 5 different locations,
Mhm.
not all high grade. We weren't trying to like grab the highest grade material. We're trying to get something that's representative of the whole. What would
Yeah.
this look like if we were mining it? And it's so encouraging to see that grade come back at that high because it is telling us that as you blend that high grade with low grade, you get a boost in that overall grade. And yeah, I think it does make it a standout. Now, as we get bigger and bigger in terms of building out a resource, I do expect that grade would drop. I mean, because you're like these big producers that have been around operating these mines for a long time. You keep pushing out and out, and then your dilution gets a little bit higher. Your grade drops. That's just a natural thing. So, what is the overall grade at Pilar? What will it be? I mean, even if it's a significant chop to the 1.9 grams that we're seeing from the bulk sample, it's still going to be considerably higher, right on par with everything that's being mined around us. So, extremely encouraging to see that.
Yeah, for sure. And the recovery that you got out of the bulk sample was, significant in that there are ways to really fine tune that production scenario. Um, I think that was
Absolutely.
very
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've basically shown that the heap leach works. You can heap leach this. That's extremely low cost, the process. But what's really interesting is the nature of that gold and silver. It's quite liberated already. So you can use gravity to recover a significant amount, and you can use agitated leach to get a large portion as well. So really, we're seeing the potential to get over 95% recovery of the gold, very high recovery of the silver, over 73%, which is kind of a rare thing. So a lot of potential there. And again, that's what really makes it stand out. We've got great grade, great recovery. Now let's just see how big we can make it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then that leads us into getting close to the end of the webinar here. So why don't you give us your thoughts on the gold market right now and what it means for juniors like Tocvan that are, they're heading into production. They have that line in sight. So how does that
Mhm.
how do you see things right now?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting time, no doubt. I think when you become CEO of a junior mining company, you should get a psychology degree along with it because it does mess with your head when you see the markets behave certain ways. But I think the reality is that we've seen it time and time again in the market. Gold moves aggressively, the big miners follow, the mid tiers follow after that, and then the junior miners move. And so to see gold rebound like it has, and to have not seen the juniors move yet, I think is that's the opportunity. There's going to be a lot of strong companies that I think rebound through this, and I think we can definitely be one of them, especially the fact that what we've been able to provide and show to the market this week. So we see a lot of strength. We've got a lot of confidence that gold is going to be strong for the years to come. Um, and we can take full advantage of that. We're basically going to be moving along with that and building a mine in a much better market. Like, so I think it's been so difficult for so long that things change, and when they change quickly, and we can take full advantage of that. And also on that point, it's like if gold's at 1800, that's fine. I mean, these mines around us can produce gold for less than $1,000 all in sustaining, and the fact that they can make money with a relatively lower price of gold is great. That gives them the shelter from a fluctuating gold price. But I think a lot of us can agree that gold's going to move higher and stabilize higher, and that's just going to benefit us even more.